Welcome to The Roar, podcast for fans of the Detroit Lions. My name is Demetrius. With me, as always, my super producer extraordinaire back for season 2, Mike Ward. We hope you enjoyed last season. We had a great time doing it. We certainly were excited about the new season. We hope you enjoyed today's cast as well. You can find us on Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube, all the places we talked about last year. If you are new to the podcast, you can hit subscribe and you'll get the notifications at all the places where you find podcasts. So make sure to type the entire name, The Roar Podcast, because there are a lot of podcasts out there called Roar, but The Roar Podcast. You can hit us on Twitter at City Roar. That's because it was initially called Motor City Roar, but they cut it short, so it became City Roar, and we just decided to stick with it. You can hit us up on Facebook, The Roar Podcast. You probably know where to find us. Thank you to everyone who listened to us last year and supported us. Anybody who's new, welcome. We're ready to go for the 2020 season if it happens. Knock on wood. So we decided we'd kick it off with a sort of preseason pod. Let's review last year, talk about where we are. And so as I talked about, with Mike, all the things we could cover today, it would have been a 3-hour podcast because I haven't done anything since the draft. So those who know me know that I'm just chomping at the bit to get back in here. And there was so much to talk about. And I got a really good idea from someone, do 2 of them. I thought about it. And I haven't ruled it out. I think I'm going to flow here and see where we end up. And if I recap this later and feel like I missed some things, you might get a 0.5 podcast. This is 0 because the week 1 game will be, season 2, episode 1. So this is episode 0. But if I feel like I missed something, I might go back and drop an 0.5 on you. So, but today we're going to start off just kind of getting reset, getting back into the groove. We got to talk about the obvious, right? We got to talk about COVID and sort of what does it mean. I'm also going to do something that I probably should have done a few times last year. So if you're not new, you've listened before, you know that I have a few terms, right? Just things that probably don't exist with other cities and other teams, things that are unique to the Lions, right? So I'm going to go through a little definition segment. Like what Mike and I do for a living, we sort of document procedures, and very early in the procedure, we have to outline the acronyms we're going to use. What do they mean for people who don't know? So in case you're new, or if you're not new and you just didn't know what I was jabbering about on multiple occasions last year, I'm going to set some definitions, what I'm calling the podcast definitions. And then we're going to talk a little bit about COVID, right? Is this thing going to happen? How are they going to do it? I'm on the conservative side of this virus, and I didn't think it was going to happen. I'm starting to get antsy now. I had resigned myself to the fact that this season probably wasn't going to happen, but I'm coming back to a much more centered place, right? It's like everything else. It's any other ideology. It's a continuum, right? And there are those people way on the left who don't think this is serious, and I'm not going to talk about those people because I'm going to attempt to do a whistle-free preseason podcast. There's no reason. Forget it. I'm not making any guarantees. I'm not making any guarantees. There are people on the far right, super conservative. They don't want to send their kids, don't want to leave the house. There's room for everybody, right? Your opinion is your opinion. It's all good. I am certainly closer to the conservative side, but not that far. And we'll talk a little bit about what the NFL is doing to hopefully allow this season to happen, right? Player safety, people safety is the number one thing to me. So if it doesn't, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to be devastated. 160,000 people have died. I think there's a need for perspective, right? So then I'm going to move into a segment I'm going to call 2019 Reset. So we're going to go back, talk a little bit about 2019. Some level of detail, but I'm not going to get really, really sort of granular in each game, as high level as I'm capable of being. And Mike's microphone isn't on, but he's chuckling. So So I'm going to do my best to not jump down a rabbit hole. Again, no promises. If you've listened before, you know, that's what I do. If you haven't, hopefully it won't bother you too much. So then I'm going to get into a segment I'm calling Quinn. And obviously that's in reference to the Lions general manager, Bob Quinn. There's a specific reason, right? When I was framing this up in my head, I wanted to talk about Quinn and Matt Patricia. And I thought, no. It's a given that if this season doesn't go, I don't know if it's a given. I'm saying it's a given, which I don't even know what that means. I'm saying I think this is what should happen. If this season does not go well, and we got a lot of talking to do, and we can define what not really well means. If this season does not go well, Bob Quinn is likely going to be gone. And I don't know if that's the same as saying he's on the hot seat. I don't know. As we go through, I'll figure that out. I don't know if I buy the hot seat situation, not in the National Football League. So the true given is that if Bob Quinn gets fired, Matt Patricia goes with him. Absolutely. They are package deal. They are joined at the hip, whatever term you want to use. So the idea that, let's talk about Bob Quinn. And I'm going to try and be somewhat analytical. I'm going to talk about the job, what his job is, at least what I think his job is. And you can agree or disagree. And then I'm going to talk about how well I think he's done. I'm going to spend time here. I'm going to spend time. So if you don't like talking about draft picks, and because for those who know me well, throughout your life in school, or someone will ask you, what's your dream job? What would be your dream job? Anybody who knows me well, who's known me more than 10 minutes, Bob Quinn's got my dream job. So I think about this a lot. I think about this for fun. But Bob Quinn has my dream job. Am I qualified? I don't know. Would I give it a shot? Oh, of course. I could be qualified. I might be qualified. I don't know. Whole other podcast. Then we're going to do a segment. Yeah, we're going to do a segment about everybody's favorite quarterback. If you thought you were getting through this without that, you either haven't listened before or you don't know me. We're doing a segment. It's called Stafford. That's going to happen. And I'm going to just spend a little time talking about his health. I mean, he's critical, right? We can agree that, hopefully we can agree on two things. One, until his injury, he was having the best season of his career. Go look at the number. No, don't go look. Stay on the pod. I'll tell you in a few minutes. Two, without him, they lost every game. We can break that down if you want, but the reality is he's best player on the team. And he's great. He's not good. He's great. He's got a potential Hall of Fame worthy career resume. Say what you want. You can buy the okie doke, and I'll talk about okie doke later. We know who Matt Stafford is. You can pretend and do the dance and say all the bad things you want about him. This isn't a place for it. I'm not doing it. And that might be cornbread. Again, I'm dropping all the stuff right now before I define them. We're doing a Stafford segment. Deal with it. Then we're going to close with the fun part, right? It's fun because it's ridiculous. It's fun because I have no level of confidence that I'm going to be right at all. But I'm going through game by game, and I'm gonna predict game by game and records. It's utterly ridiculous because there are injuries, and there are teams we don't know what they are. I don't know what Tampa Bay is. Has Green Bay taken a step back? They lost a bunch, but I don't know, right? I don't know. What are the Bears, right? Who are we? Who are we, right? Are we the team that played the Chiefs tough, went to Philly and won, and played well enough to beat Green Bay in both those games? Or are we 3-12-1? Who are we, right? So I don't know. That segment could go anyway, right? I'm gonna try and be. I did zero prep, by the way. All I did was print out the schedule, so that should be fun. But that's sort of what we got on tap. That's sort of, where we are in the intro. So we're going to go ahead and kick it over. And I'm going to do a little definition of terms / COVID-19 talk. So I want to start this year off. and I won't do this every podcast. It'll get real redundant real fast. But I use a lot of different terms on the podcast. These are terms that, if you're a Lions fan, you're probably familiar with some of them. if you're not a deep football fan, you probably have no idea. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you can figure it out, I'm sure. But I thought uh, a couple of people said to me, like, you say this a lot. What does that mean? Or that a lot, right? So a couple of things right off the top. They're not disclaimers. It's just you can understand the rest of the pod much more clearly if you understand who I am and how I think about these things, right? So understand one, I am a fan of sports talk radio. I get information, I get opinions, I get incredible entertainment from sports talk radio. Now there's like levels of that, right? There's national. And if you're a sports fan, you know what the four letter, you know what that means, right? Right? There's a sports media entity, four letters, and because I don't legally know if I can say their name, so I'm just trying to be smart here. You know who the four letter is, and if you don't, figure it out, right? That's a national media outlet, right? I will make references to them, all kinds of things, like the four letter doesn't give two craps about the Lions. Detroit teams in general get no love from the four letter. The four letter, in my opinion, is not in the business of reporting news. The four letter is an opinion organization. That's their right? But they anointed themselves the worldwide leader. In my opinion, without jumping down a rabbit hole and getting really geeky, when you decide you're the leader, even when you're told you're the leader, when you're appointed rather than self-anointing, you inherently take on a responsibility to those that follow, right? That is my biggest problem with the four letter. The four letter does a whole lot of cover your ass stuff, and I don't really love it. I have to watch the four letter. There's information I can't get anywhere else. There are people who work for the four letter that I really enjoy watching them work. As an entity, I'm not a big fan of the four letter. I will talk about the four letter. Then you got your local media. Local media for Detroit is essentially one entity. Same deal. I spend a lot of time listening to that station. There are people on that station I respect, I admire, even when I don't agree with them, because I don't always agree with them because I'm just me. I'm just a fan. I'm no different than the millions of other people that listen to the station. Well, that's not true. I'm not like a lot of them. We'll get to that. So when I talk about the sports talk radio, I'm generally talking about the local. If I'm talking about the four letter, I will generally say the four letter. Here's this phenomenon that you need to understand because I am counter to almost everything they do. I'm just a fan with a podcast, not a big deal. They're doing a different thing. They have sponsors, they have bills, they have rules, right? But fundamentally, what they do is they need to generate callers. They need to come up with topics and content to get people to call, to get people to listen. So they have a term. I didn't create it. They did. I just stole it. I don't think it's trademark. Root for radio, right? RFR. I'll talk about RFR. That is, for the most part, coaches getting hired, coaches getting fired, bad news stuff, right? Negative. Because RFR, that's how you do it. You tap into the passion of people and makes them want to call a radio station, to cut into their day, take time out of work, sit on hold for a half hour. It makes them want to call in. I used to call in. I don't so much because I'm not that guy. That guy is sports talk radio guy. I'm going to mention that person because while I fundamentally enjoy sports talk radio and I like 80% of the people that work at that station, I dislike 95% of the guys that call in. Sports talk radio guy, right? And it's much more a reflection of guys like me can't get through, right? I used to call a lot. I don't get through. You get through if you agree with the host or tell him he's great, or if you just bash the team, because that's what RFR is. RFR is negative stuff, right? Get that coach fired. That guy's got to be fired. That guy's got to be fired. I don't know that they have the power or influence to literally get someone fired, but they have the ability to shape the opinion of some of the fans. And if they only let those guys on the air, then they can say, our fans are saying this. Because a guy like me sits on hold for 40 minutes and then never gets on the air. And there's no bitterness there. I get it now. Once I figured it out, I get it, and I don't call as much. But sports talk radio guy's a certain dude. We probably know that. Hell, some of you guys might be that guy. And I'm not taking a shot at you. You are who you are. But this is that dude that knows more than everybody. He could run every team as a GM. He could be the coach of every team in both universities because he's always right. Never mind that most of his opinions come after the fact with 2020 hindsight because that's easy. Anybody could do that. Or he just baselines to the negative, and then if it goes bad, see, I told you, I knew it. Or if it goes well, I'm happy. I'm a fan. I'm glad I'm wrong. So it's just this really comfortable sort of RFR thing where they feed and they play to a specific demographic. Angry, negative, I know everything about sports guy. That's sports talk radio guy. That's who I hate. And if you're listening and you're mad, okay, that's fine. No, I don't like that guy. But it's not because they're bad or even that they're always wrong, because they're often right. I am way on the other side of the continuum. I have no shame in saying I'm on the other side of that continuum. I will never be sports talk radio guy. I am cornbread and Kool-Aid. And I'll define cornbread and Kool-Aid is what I am. I am generally always positive about this team, about most of my teams. This team, I am freakishly positive, right? When there's no reason to be positive, when there's no cause, when there's no evidence. Now, I don't just as a slappy, no, I don't do that. I think there's generally a degree of thought and reason and logic. Now, it is laced with cornbread. But the biggest point is I have no problem admitting that. I'm literally saying it 12 minutes, 15 minutes into the podcast. I'm telling you who I am. You might not like this podcast. If this is the first time you listen and you're a sports talk radio guy and you just want to hear negative, I'm not for you. And I'm okay with that. There's a place for you. There's a station for you. That's all good, right? But I believe, and again, I could be wrong, cornbread and Kool-Aid guy doesn't call the radio station. Cornbread and Kool-Aid guy doesn't get on the air when he does call the radio station. There's more cornbread and Kool-Aid guys than there are sports talk radio guys. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. So, if you're that dude, you can just go on social media and blast me. I won't care one way or another, particularly if you keep listening, right? You're not going to like my opinions 90% of the time. Right? You're not going to like my outlook, my breakdown of the games. My love for Matthew Stafford is going to drive you bananas because sports talk radio guy hates Stafford. They blame Stafford for everything against all logic, reasoning, and evidence. And there was a guy just a couple of days ago who works on the station who I respect. I generally align with his opinions. And there's just this ridiculous RFR concept of it's time to move on from Stafford. He literally said, yeah, until he got hurt, he was having the best season ever. He was a top 5 quarterback, but we should get rid of him. What? That makes no sense to me. If you can't look at the game and understand that it's a team game, and as much as you want to say, oh, that guy, Tom Brady has 8 Super Bowls. Tom Brady played on a team that won 8 Super Bowls. It's easy to say that. Is Tom Brady part of? Hell yeah. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback in the history of the league. Did he play a part? Sure. Go back and look at the defenses. Look at the guy who coaches him. And if you think it was all Brady, great. Go back and look at the team. I'm going to break down some of the teams Stafford has had to play with. It's a team game. The teams lose. They had the 31st ranked defense in the National Football League last year. And he dragged them to 3 wins before he got hurt and a tie loss that should have been 4-4. And the softest part of their schedule was coming up. And then as soon as he went down, what happened? They promptly lost every game, right? So sports talk radio guy hates Stafford, and I love him. Mini rabbit hole, sorry. That's the kind of guy that I say I hate those guys. It's tough for me to listen to those guys because they don't use logic or reasoning. It's all emotion, right? And so the other one is like the okie doke. I talk about falling for the okie doke. Okie doke can come in many ways. There's a political version of the okie doke that is good for some other podcast some other time. Not even the sports. The Lions version of the okie doke goes something like this. The Lions will never win until the Fords sell the team. It's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. They could get the GM position right. He could get the coaching position right. He could draft well. And they could win. But that's just the whole safe RFR. I can say something dramatic and profound and people think it's interesting. But it's stupid. It's stupid. Now, if you want to trace back and say Mr. Ford did a horrible job at hiring GMs, I'll touch on that later. You'd be right. You'd be right. It doesn't mean that Martha Firestone Ford got it wrong with Bob Quinn, because I haven't closed the door on Quinn yet. If you have, you're just better than me. Fine. Or, more importantly, that Sheila Ford Hamp won't either A, get it right by keeping Quinn, or B, get it right when she replaces Quinn. The concept that if anyone in the Ford family owns a team, they can never win is utterly ridiculous. So then you get the same old Lions thing. That's a new one, SOL. That one's just dumb. It's just dumb. I don't even want to talk about it. Because we talk about, I mean, Mike, I'm already there, Mike. We're in the second segment of the preseason, and I'm already there. This is what happens. Okay, so the concept of SOL suggests that no matter what, the same thing's going to happen with the Lions. The problem is it's always a different thing, right? Sometimes it's the refs. Sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot. Sometimes the other team just plays better. Sometimes the coach makes a bad call. There's so many different ways that these things happen that the idea, like the curse of Bobby Lane, there's some nonsense. No. That's nonsense. There's no SOL. There's no SOL. Every time it's been different. The Washington football team in 1992 was just better. They were just better, right? The refs flat out messed up the Calvin Johnson process call. The rules weren't clear. Blame that on the league. The refs messed up Seattle, KJ Wright batting the ball out of the end zone. That's on the refs. Jim Caldwell should have played a different type of prevent defense on the Hail Mary. That's it. Should have played a different one. And it wasn't even like it was a messed up thing to do. He made a choice based on statistics and his gut feeling. I think they're going to try and do one thing. They did something else, and then they executed it. All those are different things. The refs didn't pick up the flag. Picked up the flag in Dallas. That's just the refs at a very high level messing up. And the replay official or whoever was in charge of saying, wait a minute, don't pick up that flag. So I just ripped off 5 examples off the top of my head. Right? Sterling Sharp alone in the end zone back at the Silverdome was one guy in a busted coverage. Did the coordinator call the wrong coverage? Did that guy play the wrong coverage? I don't know. Right? But 5, 6 examples, all different things. Thus, SOL doesn't exist. So it's stupid. And then the last one, and wow, I went on way too long. You hear this stupid term called Lions. I'm Lions free. This is that asshole who gets on the radio and says, I don't care anymore. I don't watch anymore. I don't do the Lions anymore. Except you're calling into a sports talk radio station to talk about the Lions, you moron. So this is just okie doke things, right? Sorry, all my definitions wasn't supposed to take that long, I promise. But we got time. Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Those are some of the definitions. So if you hear me talk about cornbread and Kool-Aid, that's the eternal optimist in me who always wants them to win. So I will eat the cornbread and drink the Kool-Aid every day. Sports talk radio guy. For the most part, he's a know-it-all who doesn't, and he's kind of an idiot, and he's not logical or reasonable. But other than that, he's probably a nice guy. RFR, right? Anything that gets people to get pissed off and call the radio. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. Doesn't matter if it's legit. Just incite people's emotions so they'll call the radio station. The 4-letter, we know what that is. And the many, many okie dokes. All right, so we're going to move on. So here's the thing. Right now, in everybody's life, right, is one big thing, right? The number one thing in everybody's life, right? This virus isn't going away. Hasn't gone away yet. I'm not going to do some whole public service announcement about the virus. I'm going to talk specifically about the league, right? So right now, they've canceled the whole preseason. We should be talking, this should be a preseason week 1 podcast, right? But they canceled the whole preseason, right? The goal, and there was talk about, hey, can we move to spring? And there's the obvious questions. How do you socially distance and play football? My feeling is you can. So move it to spring. And all this is a constant question of 2 things. It is money versus public safety, money versus player safety. The difference here, and if you want to do some comparison, don't try and compare it to college. There's no comparison. NFL players are grown men. They sign a contract. They get paid. And most importantly, they have a union. Their union collectively bargained these safety standards. So they've agreed with their employer. We think we can do this. And if we do these things, we think we can do it safely. So college is a whole different deal. Mostly because they don't get paid. Well, I'm not going to do that. The NFL has negotiated agreement with the Players Association for protocols, right? The plan is to start the regular season, and the Lions will kick off on the 13th with Chicago coming in. The season will kick off Thursday the 10th, actually. Houston and Kansas City, I want to say. Could be wrong on that, but I'm going to go with Houston and Kansas City Thursday night, and then the full slate of Sunday games. And I think that's it, right? They have protocols in place, daily tests for the first 2 weeks of camp. And then I think it gets moved to like every other day, and they're tracking this thing called a positivity rate or something like that. And I want to say 5%, as long as it doesn't rise above 5%. If it does, they'll try some other stuff. And as expected, players reported to camp there was a lot of positive tests initially, but then there's a protocol for a number of negative tests before you can get back. And by all accounts, it's either being underreported or they're managing it pretty well, right? But football players inherently, it's a high risk. These are largely minority, which we've learned it's different in minorities, right? And they have certain conditions, right? There's guys that have asthma. There's a lot of obesity in the National Football League. Let's be honest. So these guys are a different sort of subset of the normal group, but I think the league and the Players Association think they can manage it, right? They did isolation and treatment for players who tested positive. They're using this thing called a proximity tracer. Proximity tracing device of some kind during team activities. And this isn't a deal where it could like show you, I think, where it's been. It's just about who you've been near and for how long. So if you test positive, they can go back and say, well, these are the people you were near, like too close, literal distance, and for how long you were there to kind of try and go back and trace it. Seems like it's smart. As a quality guy, it sounds brilliant to me. I know they're working on a shield, a mouth shield for helmets. Like you would have guys who would have eye shields, right, for the sun. I think they're looking at extending the mouth shield. So they're doing everything they can to mitigate the risk. And I'm hoping we get this thing in. Still not sure, right? Things could happen as we sit now, Sunday, August 16th. The plan is for them to kick off football in a few weeks. So let's hope it works. Let's all keep perspective. If it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. Like I said, 160,000 people have died in our country. Let's keep some perspective around this thing. It's a big deal. I know I'm conservative, but yeah, wear a freaking mask. Not doing that though. All right, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna do a segment now where we're just gonna talk about last year, reset it, go through that unmitigated disaster in a little bit of detail, because I think it's important to sort of reset where we were last year as we move into this year. So let's move on to the 2019 reset. Yes, loving the new music. Like it. So let's jump into 2019, right? I could do the one word thing, right? Excruciating comes to mind. Sadness, right? Possibility, So you could do a lot of things like that. But let's just quick recap, right? We started with the atrocious tie loss, is what I called it. Big lead in Arizona allowed the Cardinals to come back, and the game ended in a tie. On paper, the front part of that schedule was tough. We knew it. It seemed like a clear break, literally right about halfway through, where the backside of that schedule looked easier. No, not easy. Less difficult than the front, right? But they still somehow ended up going 2-0-1 going into a Week 4 matchup against Kansas City. I fully expect it. You can go back and look at the Week 3 pod, thinking they're about to get beat down, right? Because the defense wasn't looking good. But even then, they got to 3-4-1 at the halfway point, and it seemed like that was palatable, right? You had the tough loss to Kansas City. It was 34-30. They played well enough, right? You had the loss to Green Bay, 23-22, led the whole game, lost on a field goal as time expired. The blowout to Minnesota, that's the one that stood out. I think the final was 42-30, but it wasn't that close. Wasn't even that close. But they got a good win in Philly. They beat a decent San Diego. I couldn't stop myself. They beat a decent LA Charger team, and that win at Philly, and a pedestrian win versus the Giants. And then week 9 happened, and they went out to Oakland, lost the game, had a shot as time expired in the red zone to tie it, but it wasn't even a score. 31-27? No, 31-24 was the final. And like I said, in all those games they played, with the exception of Minnesota, they probably played well enough to win all those games, right? But the game in Oakland was season defining. That was the game. That was the most critical game of the year, and it had nothing to do with the 31-24 score. They played again well enough to win the game. But fourth quarter, Matthew Stafford takes a hit and broke what's reported multiple bones in his back. Second straight year with a back injury, by the way. And that's it. We never see Matthew Stafford again. Set aside my unnatural love for the man. Set it aside. Well, I don't know if I want to set it aside. No, we'll set it aside for now. Because, not too shockingly, they lost every other game, right? They didn't win a game after Stafford went down. You can pretend that means nothing. All right, I'm going to do more of that in the Stafford segment. I'm going to do... So, here's the thing. I don't know what they were last year, because I think they were a good team. Forget the record. I mean, there's too many mitigating circumstances to just say 3-12-1 is who they are. You got to be better than that. Right? If you're listening to this and you're shaking your head and you think I'm some kind of idiot, you're just not going deep enough. And if that's the person you are, it's cool. You could be that person that says they were 3-12-1. They obviously sucked. Then listen to me, someone who watched every play of every game, someone who did a podcast after every game, analyzed it statistically in every way. They were not a 3-12-1 football team. No cornbread. They were not, right? If you can't understand what this team losing their quarterback means, then you're not a real fan. You probably don't get it. You just want to be that guy. And you could be that guy. That's fine. But here's the thing. The difference between good teams and very good teams, they did a lot last year of what good teams do, what pretty good teams do, is they played just well enough to lose. They played Green Bay twice, just well enough for Green Bay to kick a field goal at the end of the game and beat them. They played Kansas City. They played Oakland just well enough to lose. And I'm just focused on the first half, right? Second half was what it was. And it's not that hard, right? There are plays to be made. There are plays to be made in the game, right? There's third downs where the defense has got to get off the field. 3rd and 12, and the team would pick up 14. There's times on offense, 3rd and 4. Couldn't make it. Got stopped. There are plays on the field that are there to be made. Great teams make those plays most of the time. Very good teams make those plays more than half the time. Good teams don't make those plays more than half the time. And that's it. That's it. Literally, 3-12-1. Mostly just focus on the first half, because you have to. The injury is the injury. And I'm going to talk more about Stafford in the Stafford segment. The injury is what it is. That's your best player. You can be mad you want. You can call me and talk about Kenny Galladay if you want. You can call me and talk about... No, you can't. There's nobody else. Who are you going to talk about? Who are you going to call me and tell me is better? Healthy. You can't. So, when you don't make those plays, the NFL is designed for parity. There's not that much difference. The NFL is your classic bell curve. There's 4 teams that really suck. There's 4 teams that are really good. And there's like 24 teams somewhere in the middle. And the difference is making the play or not making the play. That's it. That's really what that league is. They have 4 teams that are horrible, and there are 4 teams that are great. That's it. Other 24 teams are somewhere in that middle cluster. And how you differentiate yourself and move closer to the great teams than to the other teams, you make those plays. 2, 3 plays in a game. That's it. Maybe 4. Sometimes it's 1. You got to make those plays. You got to get off the field on 3rd and 12. You got to convert on 3rd and 4. You got to make those plays. And the Lions did not make those plays last year. A lot of games where they did not make those plays. And those were losses. And that's the difference. That's the difference. And so to me, I don't just want to come and do the whole, they sucked last year. What is it? Give me a solution. Mike and I work in an industry where it's better to, when you bring up a problem, if you have thought about and have an opportunity for a solution ready to bring right behind it. It's clear, right? You cannot, he's got to be healthy. We'll talk about him later. He's got to be healthy. But this is the defense. Can't finish 31st in defense. I can say this, and I don't have to be brilliant or a lifelong Lions fan. If they have the 31st rated defense in 2020, they'll be roughly 4-12 again. You can't do that in this league. This is a passing league, and you were dead last in the league in passing yards allowed. You cannot be dead last in the league in passing yards allowed and finish 31st, giving up 400 yards a game total. You cannot do that and win football games. It is not that hard. There is a direct correlation to that. It's a passing league. If you're dead last in passing yards, you're a bad football team. Doesn't matter how great your quarterback is, and he is. Doesn't matter. You're giving up 400 yards a game. That means you're giving up points. That's it. That's it. I didn't even bother to go in depth into looking at where the offense was ranked, how the offense, it didn't matter. They had the 31st ranked defense in the league in a 32-team league, and they were dead last in passing yards. That's it right there. That's it. That's my big nugget, my big takeaway. You finish 17th in the league overall instead of 31. Your playoff team. You probably win the division. That's it. Now, that assumes number 9's healthy. Because those are the two things, right? Keep number 9 healthy, improve your defense by leaps and bounds. But it should be easy. It should be easy to improve to 22 or 20. I want more. Finish 16, 18. I'll even take 20. Finish top 20 in defense, you're probably a playoff team. And if you don't, you're not. That's it. That's it. It's not rocket science. Their defense sucked last year. And there's a reason they have a new defense coordinator. All that stuff makes sense, right? Because to be last in passing, okay, you would say, okay, wait, they played Patrick Mahomes. They played Aaron Rodgers twice. They played Phillip Rivers. Think what you want about Phillip Rivers. He was pretty solid, right? Even Dak Prescott, okay, great. I'll give you all those. But they got cut up by Jameis Winston. They got carved up by Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. That's the difference. That's the difference. You take your beat down from Mahomes and Rodgers, maybe even Phillip Rivers. You have to play better against Dak because he's got Zeke. You can't get cut up by Jameis Winston. No. You can't. Derek Carr lit you up. I get it. Game was in Oakland. Give me the whole flight thing, whatever. Everybody lit us up. I just ripped off half the schedule off the top of my head. 8 games where the other team's quarterback. I didn't talk about Haskins. I didn't talk about who started for Philly in that game. Might have been Carson Wentz. Don't know. But, well, everybody probably lit us up because we had the worst passing defense in the league. So it's simple. Stafford's got to stay healthy, and the defense has got to move up somewhere top 20. Give me a top 20, top 17 defense, and Stafford plays 16 games. They win the division. They're going to the playoffs. That's my call. You can call it bold if you want. I think it's pretty much simple logic. So, all right, now I want to do something. I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to take a while. So this would be a good time to take a break if you need a break. I'm about to talk about the GM position as a whole, the history of the Lions GM position, and what Bob Quinn has done to date in a segment I'm just calling Quinn. So, Bob Quinn. All right, I'm going to start this off with the disclaimer, right? So we can get this out of the way quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'm not that fan that thinks I could do Bob Quinn's job. I have an opinion on how Bob Quinn does some aspects of his job.
Boo, you suck.
I do not. No, I'm going to change that. I think that had I put a focus in that direction and committed myself to work super hard, I could do that job because I have a passion for it, right? But that's not what's happening right now. That's not what the next 20 minutes is going to be about. The next 20, to the best of my ability, I'm going to try and just wrap the cornbread up and put it in the fridge for now. And I want to look at the job. And then I'm going to look at how his predecessors have done the job. And then I'm going to get into some detail about how he's doing the job. Why does this matter? Why am I dedicating this much time in the podcast to doing it? Because I think that this is a critical year. I don't love the term hot seat. I think it's weird, the term hot seat. I think the NFL is too fickle. And I do not know how Sheila Ford Hamp intends to lead this organization. So it's very tough. Mr. Ford, you had a documented history of decisions that you could sort of get predictive on what Mr. Ford might do. Martha Firestone Ford, you were starting to get a pattern to understand that she was not as patient as her husband. She was much more open about flat out saying how she felt, good, bad, or indifferent about situations. We don't really know what kind of leadership style Sheila Ford Hamp intends to display in this role as the chairman or chief owner, whatever it is. So there's a little bit of that. So I don't know. But for me, let's put it this way. If like I said earlier, if it goes bad quickly, and I'm not doing a Patricia segment because to me they're tied together. They are Batman and Robin. And if Quinn goes down, Patricia goes down. Whether it's, hey, you're both fired, or Bob Quinn's fired, here's our new GM, that guy wants to get his own guy sort of thing. Then Patricia goes that way. I think they're tied together. I think this is the season. It needs to be right this year. Does that inform my opinion relative to how they're going to do? I could lie and say no. I could, but I'm not. I like to think that I can objectively look at, and I'm going to talk more about what they've done. Right? And okay, so we'll jump right in. So first of all, the position itself, it probably has a bunch of different titles. Depends on the organization. Executive Vice President, right? Director of Pro Personnel, whatever. Fans generally use the term GM just as a generic term. So it doesn't matter what it was called, and I'm going to talk about 5 different guys, and they might have all had different titles. So set that aside. It's the job that Bob Quinn has now. And so in my lifetime, and a lot of this is just me going from memory. So if I get some specific detail wrong, it's fine. You can run with that. This podcast isn't a big enough deal for it to matter. So Russ Thomas is the first guy I remember. Very young. I remember Russ Thomas. And the research I have is simple. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Russ Thomas. This is pre-free agency, pre-salary cap, right? So the knock on Russ Thomas, and I may have covered this in a podcast last year. I feel like I did. Russ Thomas was cheap. So guys would want more money. He wouldn't give more money, or guys would want to negotiate, and their agents would just have a heck of a time negotiating with Russ Thomas. That was the label. I'm not saying it was accurate or right. That's what I remember, right? So we're going to set him out. Chuck Schmidt. So Chuck Schmidt, probably mid-80s. And I could be missing a guy between Russ Thomas and Chuck Schmidt. I feel like I might be, but I'm going right to Chuck Schmidt. Chuck Schmidt gets a bad rap. If you badmouth Chuck, the Chuck Schmidt era wasn't horrible. We know it's horrible. We're going to find out horrible pretty soon, right? With Matt Millen, the Chuck Schmidt teams made playoffs. Chuck Schmidt drafted Barry Sanders and Herman Moore and Chris Spielman and Benny Blades and Lomas Brown and Kevin Glover. The Chuck Schmidt era wasn't that bad. Now, I feel like there was also somebody maybe helping Chuck Schmidt. I don't know. I'm not the guy that's going to get on a podcast and badmouth the Chuck Schmidt era. Now, when I break down the position, the job, and let me get to that now because it'll make more sense. Bob Quinn's job probably has a lot of functions. Too many to name, maybe. I'm focusing on 4. Right? I'm focusing on 4 functions. And we can debate level of importance, but for me, his 4 functions are the draft, 2, salary cap management, 3, personnel moves, trades, free agent signings, that sort of thing. And then 4, coaching, like coaching, hiring, and firing. I'm just going to focus on those 4 things. It's a difficult job, and it probably has a lot more functions than I realize. He represents the team at league functions, and he probably does things with the uniform. I don't know. I'm focusing on those 4, because those 4, I think, are how you keep your job. If you do well at these 4, you can keep this job as long as you want, probably. So I'm going to focus on 4. So now going back to Chuck Schmidt. By all accounts, Chuck Schmidt did the drafting part relatively well, right? I just ripped off a bunch of guys, and there's a safety that I used to like, Sheldon White, maybe. They were really good players. If you listed the 30 best players in the history of the franchise, hell, 15 of them probably were acquired by Chuck Schmidt. Now, Chuck Schmidt has the black mark. I'm going to talk about the black mark with every guy. Chuck Schmidt's black mark, to me, it is simple. And there are those who will say, oh, well, Barry Sanders fell in his hands. That's not true. Because the Packers could have taken Barry Sanders. And Chuck Schmidt at 3 could have taken Deion Sanders, could have taken Derek Thomas. There were great players drafted after Barry. So don't poo-poo on, oh, that was just an easy pick. He fell into your lap when Green Bay passed. Okay, whatever. The black mark for Chuck Schmidt is Pat Swilling, Willie Roaf. That's it. You traded, I don't remember, 7 or 9 to the Saints for Pat Swilling. And it never worked out. And the Saints used the pick. The Lions traded them to draft Willie Roaf, who promptly spent, 15 years dominating the league at left tackle and went to the Pro Bowl and the Hall of Fame. Many Pro Bowls and the Hall of Fame. That's the Chuck Schmidt black mark. I'm pretty sure Chuck Schmidt's responsible for that move. Pat Swilling. Second Chuck Schmidt black mark. Say Chuck Schmidt black mark 10 times. Good luck. I just blanked on the dude's name. The left-handed quarterback. Scott Mitchell. Jeez. Scott Mitchell is the second one. And some people would have Scott Mitchell as first. Except Scott Mitchell had one decent year. And a lot of people, when Dan Marino got hurt, Mitchell played like 10, 12 games, looked great. He was a hot commodity. At the time of the decision, people were not thinking it was a horrible decision. There was a time when they had a great season, I want to say 95, promptly went to Philly and got smoked, but that one hurt. I think there were other options there. So I would say Pat Swilling for what would be Willie Roaf and Scott Mitchell are the black marks. But I think the Chuck Schmidt era largely was good. There were playoff runs. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the obvious. Okay. The fourth part of the job I said was coaching. And there were people who just didn't like Wayne Fontes. Well, no, that's not true. Everybody liked Wayne Fontes. Wayne Fontes is one of the nicest people you ever meet, most likely. There were people who didn't think he was a good coach. So there are some people who might say that Wayne Fontes is the biggest black mark on the Chuck Schmidt era. But if you couple... See, I was a Wayne guy, though. I'm going to be honest. I miss Wayne Fontes. It was entertaining when Wayne Fontes was the head coach. Everything. The press conference was entertaining. The team was competitive. There's 10-6, 9-7 teams. There's wild card teams in there. There's an NFC championship team in there. So you can say what you want, but there are people who would. The Willie Roaf, Pat Swilling one is, to me, the one. Right, but in all honesty, when they made the trade, Pat Swilling was a Pro Bowler, and everybody thought he'd fit. I don't know why that worked. They should maybe do a 30 for 30 on that. But those are a couple of the black marks. But Chuck Schmidt drafted a lot of the greatest players in the history of the team. So then, for reasons still unknown, public pressure, he bought the okie doke. You got the millionaire, right? Which is essentially what? 2000 to 2009? I'm going to say 2000. Maybe got fired in 2008. Okay, I don't need to do a lot of time on this. Unmitigated disaster. Unmitigated disaster. And I think that Matt Millen, probably a nice man. I hear he's in good health, which is what's really important. Probably a great dad, great grandfather, whatever. Did every aspect of that job poorly, including the most important one. Make no mistakes. Of those four things, the draft is 1A, 1B, and 1C, and maybe 2. Everything else falls below that. If you draft well, you can figure the other ones out. If you draft well, you don't have to overspend, thereby managing your cap well. You can make strategic trades, strategic signings, thereby handling that part. And a team that drafts well builds a foundation, and you don't need a great coach. You can have a good coach. Good coaches have won Super Bowls. Average coaches have won Super Bowls. Certainly gotten there. Right? You don't need, and I don't know that he can do that part well. I mean, I think that I believe Steve Mariucci is a good coach, still a good coach. I think Marty Morningwood could have been a good coach. I don't know. Millen didn't draft. And then I think because of that, they had to make some bad signings. He was the Marinelli hiring was not good. I don't know if he shouldn't have just kept Gary Moeller from the start. Part of me says that would have been the move. I don't know. So I think he failed the draft. I think he failed the coaching piece. I think he failed the free agent signings. And I don't really know if the cap was ever a real issue. So I shouldn't honestly say he failed at all four. He failed at the most important one, and it trickled down. He failed at the draft. Right? So then, now Martin Mayhew replaced Matt Millen. So Mayhew is there's a couple of things. You just can't get past them, right? For me, it's the 2012 draft, right? Because the Lions went to the playoffs in 2014 and 2016. Possible exception of Riley Reif, I don't think there was a player from the 2012 draft on either of those teams. This is a team that should have had the foundation. Of the foundation of that team, 2, 3, 4 of those players should have been from that draft. And they weren't. You just punted the 2012 draft. And I think that's the Reef Broyles Bill Bentley draft. Mikael LaSure, Titus Young. Were those Millens? Those might have been Millens. I should have researched it. You punted on the 2012 draft. The 2012 draft would have been the foundation of not the foundation. To add 2 or 3 players to the 2014 team that was a wild card team, maybe they're a division winner. Maybe that game's at home. The 2016 team, I don't know. If you had 2, 3 quality players to that team, what you should get in the first 2 rounds of the draft, do they beat Seattle? Do they compete? That was a weird game, though. But the 2014 and 2016 playoff teams, I mean, if you have players on those teams from that 2012 draft, God forbid you get lucky, get a couple of gems, you got 4 players on it, that's a really good football team. Probably wins the division instead of in the wild card, right? That's how you have to think about it. For me, Mayhew was just, it's inexplicable. Inexplicable. And then, of course, I don't know, there are those who are like, okay, how's he not going to mention Ebron, right? How's he not going to mention Aaron Donald and Eric Ebron? If I mention Pat Swilling and Willie Roaf, I have to mention Aaron Donald and Eric Ebron. Okay, there you go. There's 2 things on Mayhew. Punting the 2012 draft and taking Eric Ebron over Aaron Donald. Can't get past those things. Now, if you were to set those aside, I'm not sure Martin Mayhew was a bad GM. I'm not sure he and Tom Lawan didn't do a pretty good job. But you can't see Rams highlights and not have your stomach flip. You can't think about the 2014 and 2016 teams and understand that if you don't punt the 2012 draft, you have a foundational team, right? So those are sort of the predecessors and how they did the job. And I do that to make a point. It's not easy. It's not easy. This is a hard job. And sports talk radio guy, thinks he can do it. Thinks, oh, I would have done it. Well, of course you would have. Because it's hindsight. Everybody would have. It's like the people that bashed the Pistons for taking Darko back in 2003, right? Oh, think of what everybody was thinking. Because everybody thought it was a good idea. Because he had a championship level team and Darko was an 18-year-old with, by everyone's account, tremendous potential. Hindsight's easy. Anybody can do that. I try not to practice that. I try not to. And I didn't love the Eric Ebron pick, but I'm not going to sit there and act like I knew Aaron Donald was going to be Aaron Donald, because that's bull. That's a bunch of BS, right? So let's talk about Quinn and the 4 parts a little bit. So I'm going to talk about the draft a lot, right? Because anybody who knows me knows that's my favorite weekend of the year. That's the most important thing to me in any team, is you got to get the draft right. So I'm gonna get into the weeds. I'm gonna do a bit of, I don't know. I want to get into this because if you look at a draft as a whole class and grade a whole class, it's easier, particularly 2-3 years later, than to do it at the time. And so, like his first draft, Taylor Decker was the 16th pick. I've been up and down on Taylor Decker. I hope he's healthy and comes back. Guess what? With the exception of Joe Dahl, there is nobody else on the team right now. That's 4 years ago. It's 2016 draft. 2017 draft? 2016 draft. Yeah, he got hired in 16. This is the draft 2-3 months after he got hired. Ashawn gone. Glasgow gone. No idea what Miles Killebrew... Is Miles still with us? I may have to take that back. I don't know if Miles Killebrew is still with us. But Joe Dahl, I think, is still there. That's it. Yeah. And Ashawn was... I thought Ashawn was good. I liked Ashawn. If you go back and listen to last year's podcast, I liked Ashawn more than most people. Glasgow was a good player. I think you just found somebody better. And so I don't hate that move. But, that draft essentially yielded your starting left tackle. I don't know how you grade that. Probably not well. But the whole premise of this is, what's a good draft versus what's not a good? To me, it's simple. If you get 3 rotational players, that's a very good draft. I'm going to call that a very good. Rotational, I mean guys who play. That's what rotational means, guys that play. Guys that are up, that are dressed. They're not on the whatever that thing is where you're on the team but you don't get to play. Brain locked, I don't know what it's called. Inactive, yeah. Guys who are up and dressed and will play, right? That draft, I feel like there's 1.5 guys, right? Taylor Decker's your starting left tackle. Despite me being mad at him often last year, Taylor Decker's a good tackle, and he's good. I'm not saying he's great. I don't think that's a good draft. I don't think it's a good draft. 5th round pick in Antoine Williams, linebacker, don't know. Jake Rudock was around for a minute. Zetto showed some promise, but I think he's gone. He might be in the league, though, but he's gone. And then there was he drafted a long snapper. 6th round, that was nonsense. And that running back, Dwayne Washington, showed some promise. And I think just better guys just came along. But that draft, to me, yielded 1.5 contributors. I can't call that a good draft, right? 2017. Now, this is the one. This is the one where I don't know how to grade this draft, right? Kenny Galladay's a stud, no doubt. I'm up and down on Jarrad Davis. It depends on how you feel about him. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, I think, is still with the team. And Jamal Agnew has a niche, right? So you're talking about, they didn't pick up Jarrad Davis's option. In general, that is an indicator. That is an indicator that you don't have a future with the team, right? This draft, it boils down to one name. At the end of the day, this is the Tease Tabor draft. This is the Tease Tabor draft. And that's it. That's it. 53, you take the corner out of Florida. You came up to the podium and said, I have never watched as much tape on any player as I have on Tease Tabor. You can't, that's your I am not a crook. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. That's your statement that stands forever. I watch more tape on this player than any player I ever have. Tease Tabor, I don't know him. He might be a nice guy. I have no idea. I'll do my disclaimer, right? But if Jarrad Davis leaves after this year, which is a high probability, he's totally transformed his body, and I guess in theory he could resign, Galladay and Agnew are not enough to call this a good draft. If Jarrad Davis turns it around, becomes a critical part of this team, which I don't know that that's going to happen. If it does, then I can say Jarrad Davis, Kenny Galladay, Jamal Agnew, and maybe Jalen Reeves-Maybin is still with the team. I could call this an okay draft. It is hard to ignore the Tease Tabor pick. It's impossible to ignore Tease Tabor. I can't call that, although Galladay's a stud. So I'm going to call it a good draft because I like Jarrad Davis. I think there's a place. I think they're going to work it out and he'll be here longer. And Agnew, when he's healthy, gives you something for sure. On the strength of Galladay, I'm going to call that an okay draft. I'm going to say you have 1 plus a half, 2 contributors in that draft. So that's just okay. That's not good. That's not good. That's okay. 2018, I actually did like 2018. I think Frank Ragnow's a good pick. I think he's got position versatility on the line. Healthy Kerryon Johnson from the second round, good pick. When he's healthy, in a tandem with DeAndre Swift, I think he's going to be fine. I always like Tracy Walker. I don't know how anybody else feels. I thought Tracy Walker played well. I like Tracy Walker. I like Deshaun Hand. Need him to stay healthier. I think he's going to have a big season this year. Tyrell Crosby, I think, is going to make the team and be in the rotation. I do. So 5 of your 6 picks are in the team and they play. Literally. 3, maybe 4 of them are starters. 2018 is a good draft. They only had 6 picks. The fullback, Nick Baldwin, I don't think is with the team, right? The other 5 guys I named not only play, they contribute. Frank Ragnow, Kerryon, Tracy Walker might be starting safety. Deshaun Hand probably is going to certainly be in the rotation, and Crosby might as well. That's a good draft. There's no superstars in there, but you have 5 contributors, 3 rotations. That's a good draft. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's a good draft. Last year has like a question mark, right? It has a question mark, right? Hawkinson got hurt. He showed flashes, but he got hurt. Jelani Tavai, people are up and down. I thought he looked good at times. Other people don't like him. Don't know what he is yet. He needs to make a jump this year. Will Harris got time at safety, played at safety. I like Walker and Harris, the future of the safety position, personally. I don't mind Will Harris in the 3rd round. 4th round, Austin Bryant, the guy at Clemson. I think he was either hurt. I feel like he was hurt. I don't want to say too much. I think he was hurt. So I'm not going to. 5th round, Oruwariye played quite a bit. The defensive back out of Penn State. That corner from Toledo, Fulgham, I don't know if he was injured or didn't work out. Ty Johnson played a little bit. Isaac Nauta played a little bit. This is a draft where it looks like they had maybe 9 picks. I'm counting. Sorry. 9 picks. I feel like 3 of them are contributors. Not that they're great. Hawkinson, Tavai, and Will Harris played. They were in the rotation. Ty Johnson was in the rotation with all the running back injuries. And the corner out of Penn State, Oruwariye, played quite a bit too. Right? I don't know. I think that's an okay draft. Right? So then you get to this year. And I'm not a single one of these guys has played. They haven't played. But I'm going to be honest right up front. I think this is his best draft. I think he hit 3 home runs. I mean, I think Jeff Okudah is going to be one of the better corners in the league. I think DeAndre Swift is going to give this backfield a dimension they haven't had since Javid Best, Reggie Bush. I don't know. We thought Kerryon's more straight line than I recall. DeAndre Swift can go the distance. DeAndre Swift can catch out the backfield. He's a mismatch nightmare for linebackers. DeAndre Swift with Kerryon and Bo Scarborough, who I assume will be back, gives your running back room, whether it's Ty Johnson or anybody else they bring in that room. That's a strong room. Right? The running backs as a group, we have a strong stable of backs, right? I love Julian Okwara. Love him. I'm saying that before he plays it down because I haven't heard anybody else say it. I love Julian Okwara. And I think they might have their 2 starting guards in the 3rd and 4th round. Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg might be your 2 starting guards, right? I don't know what Quintez Cephas is going to give us. Something in my head, the word slow keeps coming up. Slow, which you don't want at the wide receiver position. But from there, if Jason Huntley does anything, the running back out of New Mexico, great. We seemed to need running backs last year. Depth was necessary. The defensive lineman out of Utah, Penasini is I think how you pronounce it, and Cornell, the defensive lineman out of Ohio State. That rounds out the draft. To me, this draft is about those top 5 guys. I think those top 5 guys are going to be rotation, like legitimate contributors. And if I go back to Mayhew, if you could have gotten 5 dudes in the 2012 draft, the 14 and 16 playoff teams might have been different stories. If you go into a draft and you come out with 5 rotational players, I mean, you can make a case that Julian Okwara is going to start at left end. You can make a case that DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson's health being the question, is your starting running back. And if you have Jackson and Stenberg starting at guard, you got 5 starters. Who gets 5 starters in a draft? This could be the one that changes everything. Changes the team, in addition to free agent signings. It changes the perception of Bob Quinn. If they hit the home run here, you change your perception of how he's done with the draft. Overall drafting, I probably can only give him a C, C+. And the plus is basically on the potential of this last draft. But that's a big part of his job. And at best, you can say he did an okay job. There's no superstar in that group. Galladay's the best player in that group that he's drafted. I'm not mad at Taylor Decker. I'm being real. I like Frank Ragnow. Being real. Hawkinson might end up being one of the best tight ends in the league. I don't know, but I think the best player might end up being Okudah. Maybe Swift, but I think Okudah might end up being his best pick. But if I'm saying 2 or 3 of his best picks have yet to hit the field, I don't think he's drafted well. I don't see that diamond in the rough. If you want to call Galladay a 3rd-round pick a diamond, great. Problem is he got drafted after Tease Tabor, and you can't ignore that, right? So the draft, C+, maybe. Okay, we got to move on. Salary cap. I think been in pretty good position. They haven't really been jammed up. I want to say 2 years ago they had some stuff, but I think they cleaned it up. I think Golden Tate trade helped. I think Darius Slay trade helped. Stafford's contract is brilliant. I think the guy should be getting applauded for how they handled Stafford's contract. They thought about timing. They did everything right. And say what you want. My feeling is he's top 7, top 8 quarterback in the league. He's got a manageable deal. They went into free agency this year with a bunch of cap space and were able to do some things. And they're teed up nicely to extend Galladay. I think he's done a good job on the cap management side. I give him a B there. It puts you in a position to do some things, right? Marvin, I think, is going to be up. There's every guy's going to be up, and you make the decisions as they come up. Smart signings, right? Managing the cap well. Okay, roster management, trades and free agents. So there's a tricky piece because you got to take your heart out of it. Now, everybody, including my brother Kenny, knows I love Darius Slay. Loved him. I was a big Slay guy. I'm still a Slay guy. Here's the simple thing on Slay. He signed a 4-year deal with the Eagles. I'm going to say the average is 17. I could be off, but I'm not that far off. $17 million a year for 4 years. Yeah, I feel like that number's pretty close. 29, age 29, age 30, 31, and 32. Can you pay a really good 29-year-old corner $17 million? Sure. Can you pay a 30-year-old corner $17 million? You can. 31? I'm not sure. 32? Not so much. Especially if you have the 3rd pick in the draft and you can get a pretty much universally believed to be can't-miss corner. And you can pay that guy a rookie deal, right? Because what you're talking about, when you look at this the correct way, is Darius Slay and Rashaan Melvin or Desmond Trufant, Jeff Okudah, and $8 million a year in cap space for the next 4 years. Argument over. That's it. You didn't have a choice. Darius Slay was worth $17 million a year. You couldn't pay Darius Slay $17 million a year. There's no villains. There's no bad guys. Nobody's wrong in this. That is exactly how free market, free agency, competitive athletics should be. Darius Slay was smart and right to want more. He deserves every penny. The Lions couldn't pay him. Couldn't. They handled that perfectly. They traded him. Oh, I forgot to add in the assets they got. But at the end of the day, is it better to have Darius Slay and Rashaan Melvin as your starting corners, or Desmond Trufant, Jeff Okudah, a couple of picks, 5th round or whatever, and $8 million in cap space each year for the next 4 years? That's what that is, right? They signed the guy, Deron Harmon, or traded for him. They got the guy from New England. That's a simple scheme fit. It's a scheme fit. And now your safety room has veterans in Harmon and Jaron Curse, special teamer, with Walker and Harris. That's a good safety room. That safety room's getting solid now. Then you sign Big V, Vitae. I'm going to get his name during the year. I'm going to do it. I've been working on it, and I'm going to say his first name. Halapua Vitae. That's how I think you say it. Halapua Vitae, something like that. We're going to get that down, though. I owe him that. 5 years. Position flexibility on the line, that's a good signing. That contract is really, really palatable, and he can play multiple positions. I think the 3-year contract with Jamie Collins brings in a guy with scheme fit, who knows the language, he knows the system. I think Danny Shelton and Nick Williams replace Snacks and Ashawn. If you don't think it's an upgrade, fine. You didn't watch Snacks play last year. and I don't think they had a problem with Ashawn. I think Ashawn got a ton of money. Not ton. Ashawn got more money. So I think this goes into the roster management, cap management deal. Danny Shelton, Nick Williams, you got Deshaun Hand, guys in that rotation. The 2-year deal for Desmond Trufant. Excellent, solid corner working with Jeff Okudah. Signings, they did well. I think they did well in the trade and free agency department. You know, they had some critical departures, right? Slay gone, Graham Glasgow gone, Ashawn, like I said, Melvin, Tavon Austin, but you kind of replace him with Harmon. Snacks, Rick Wagner is I was a Wagner guy. I miss Devon Kennard. That's my guy. But Jamie Collins might be a better scheme fit. I don't know. We'll see. I think they managed those things well. I give them a B- there. I think they did a lot of things really smart there. Now here's the one. The last piece. It's the coaching, right? Hiring and firing coaching is a big part of that job. So I have never strayed. I was a Jim Caldwell guy. I say, and I don't care if it sounds like hyperbole, Jim Caldwell is the best coach we ever had. And I liked Jim Schwartz. I liked Wayne Fonts. I liked Steve Mariucci. Jim Caldwell is the best coach this organization ever had. Period. But possibly because of RFR, idiot sports talk radio guy, whoever. They didn't see it. Now some of them are walking it back because they see it, right? They like to talk this thing about in-game decisions, he sucked. Coaches make 1,000 decisions in a 3-hour time frame of a game. They're going to get some of them wrong. Fact was, that guy was here for 4 years. We made 2 playoffs and made a run for another. And if you hadn't punted the 2012 draft, guess what? Those teams would have been better. Jim Caldwell was the best coach we ever had. A good man and a good coach. Period. He was a good coach. But he came out and spoke in the last couple weeks. Quinn never wanted him. Quinn wanted to hire Patricia from the day he arrived. And some combination, well, the RFR narrative is he was forced to keep Jim Caldwell because Martha once came out and said, I love Jim Caldwell. Well, guess what? I love Jim Caldwell. We all should love Jim Caldwell because he's a good man and a good coach. We all should love Jim Caldwell, right? The reality was, and I'm not mad at Bob Quinn for that, by the way. I will steal Bill Parcells' line. I probably mentioned this on past podcasts. If you're gonna make me make dinner, let me buy the groceries. I have been in positions in the regular workforce where you have moved into a leadership role, and the first thing you do is assess the people you have, and you want to get your guy. Your guy. I like to use Batman and Robin. You need your Robin. I know that feeling literally, and I get that feeling. In a leadership role, you want somebody you know, you're familiar with, speaks your language, you can trust, all of that. All of that. And he wanted to do things the New England way, the way he knew. It's not even the New England way. It's the way he was taught, the way he believed in. Because it's not like he's just a Bill Belichick robot. He believed in what they did there. And for a good reason. It worked. So he wants to build a system that he knows, that he's familiar with, and he wants people in that system who can execute it. So this is not some he wanted his guy. No, he had a strategy. The strategy he laid out to the Ford family got him the job. Now he wanted people in he could trust to execute that strategy. Not because they're his friends. He believes they can do it. That makes sense. Now he wanted them from day one. He couldn't get them. I think that team went to the playoffs. It's going to be tough to fire Jim. Plus, I don't think you can get him anyway. There's timing around when coaches can be hired. And the Patriots were going to a Super Bowl that year, if I'm not mistaken. Second year, he wanted him again. He wanted to get him immediately before the Lions had played a game under his regime. Then that year, which would have been his second opportunity, the Lions made the playoffs. and New England probably played late into the season. And so it was the third year. After 2 years, Lions missed the playoffs. I feel like it was 9-7 or something like that. He got his opportunity. Patricia was available, and he gave the whole podium speech about got to get better. 9-7 isn't good enough. That's still funny. That's still very, very funny. 2 years later, that's a very funny statement. Now, I don't. All this being said, I give him a D here. This is my opinion. Patricia has done nothing to support this decision, and Jim Caldwell was a really good football coach, a good man and a good football coach. I think it was a bad decision. I think had he given Jim Caldwell a few pieces, this would be a consistently good team. The culture was great. Guys loved Jim Caldwell. Terrell Austin was a good DC. I think it was a bad decision. I just gave you a whole speech about why I don't have a problem with why he did it. No. I understand why he did it. I never agreed with it, and I still think it's a horrible decision. Now, they could change that whole narrative with one good season. But my general is like a D for coaching. So that's sort of my feeling on Bob Quinn. Fair, unfair, good or bad, whatever. I think it's important to go through that because if he doesn't figure this out, I think he did the free agency piece well. By all accounts, he's done the draft thing well, and he's managed to cap well. So if they figure this out, Bob Quinn could have a good year. Bob Quinn could have a big year. We could still have a lot more Bob Quinn in our future because there's a lot of opportunity for improvement, and it may be coming. So, all right, spent a long time talking about Bob Quinn. Still think it was warranted. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But now we're about to really have some fun because we get to talk about everybody's favorite quarterback. So since we spent so much time on Quinn, I'm not going to make the Stafford segment long as much as I want to, because this is the part, if you're new to the podcast, I'm going to keep this simple. I love Matthew Stafford. I have no problem saying it. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I think Sports Talk Radio guy is an idiot because they don't appreciate him. They don't see how great he is. They find all these reasons to knock him. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a great quarterback. He's never been in trouble. We don't hear stories about him in jail. All he and his wife do are great things in the community and great things for the... Matthew Stafford's just a really good quarterback and a really good guy. And it baffles me why we don't love this dude. Why we are not erecting just like monuments for him. Well, that's a little bit much. That was some cornbread. Sorry, that was some cornbread. There's a whole lot of cornbread. Look, I don't know why we don't love the guy. I do. And I have no problem admitting it. And if someone wants to have an intellectual discussion with me about why I love Matthew Stafford, please hit our Facebook page, hit Twitter. My email is on there anytime. Nobody likes talking about Matthew Stafford as much as I do. The reality is, before he got hurt, he was 4 or 5, top 5 rank in the league. He was going to the Pro Bowl, right? And if you want to ignore numbers and data and stats, we can't talk anyway. Because I work in quality assurance, and that's the foundation for everything I think. The numbers are simple. 8 games, half a season. Listen to this, okay? 2,499 yards. You know what that means? That's basically 5,000 yards for the season. He had 19 touchdowns. Just double the numbers. 5 picks, 106 QBR. 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, and 10 picks. Every team in the league would take that. Every team in the league would love to have that. It's not too... Okay, I'm not doing it. I was going to do it, Mike. I'm not doing it. Nope. You're not going to get me to do it in the preseason. Nope. You cannot ignore what he did last year. And it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't 2 big games. He was consistently good. I would say the game in Green Bay, he didn't play well. That's a one game, right? At Philly, he played well enough. They won the game, which is most important. He was basically phenomenal in every other game. I mean, the Viking game was statistics mostly because they got their asses handed to them right? At the end of the day. But I'm sorry, you put up 364 and 4 touchdowns with a 111 rating. He did his part. I'm tired of it, actually. I thought I was going to enjoy this segment. I'm actually not. Matthew Stafford's a great quarterback. The idea of moving on from him, or God, it makes me want to throw up. Mike, this is going to be a short segment. Here's the deal. From a health standpoint, it appears he's okay and everything's good. I've heard him say, I've seen his wife say, I've seen the coaches say, Matthew Stafford's good to go. It's clear what he means to the team. It's not a coincidence they lost every game after he got hurt. I just read off his stats. Like I said, I don't know how to argue data. And 5,000 yards, and I'm extrapolating, I get it. 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, 10 picks, and a 106 QBR. Are you kidding me? Why can't we love this dude? I don't get it. But you know what? I'm not even doing it. I went so long on Quinn, and I'm so tired of trying to convince people of what they're seeing, right? Because you're going to miss him when he's gone. And you're going to be playing Jeff Driscoll and David Blau. No disrespect to those. They're nice dudes, I'm sure. God, man, we might have 3 more years with this guy if we are lucky. And we're still being idiots and doing the dumb RFR. It's time for him to go. Blah, 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 blah. Are you kidding me? All right, I'm not doing it, Mike. Sorry. I'm moving on. Let's get to the predictions. Let's get through this. Time for the predictions. So, I'm not even going to let Mike jump in and do his Bears thing. We could do those during the season. Here's the quick disclaimer, because I have to do it. So, there's an easy way to do this, right? There's an RFI Sports Talk Radio guy way to do this. Loss. 4-12, face up, 4 sell the team. Yep, that's easy. Not going to happen right now, so don't even worry about that. I did the definitions at the beginning for a reason. And the one I haven't mentioned much, cornbread and Kool-Aid. This is the cornbread and Kool-Aid segment, folks. If you know me, you know what's about to happen. If you don't, this is cornbread and Kool-Aid. This is me. I put on my glasses. They're rose-colored, of course. I'm going to go through every game. And I'm going to be completely objective and unbiased. Wait, no, whatever the opposite of that is what I'm going to be. So the reality is this. Let's just be honest. They're probably an 8-8 football team. 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, probably, maybe. Yeah, I don't have the capacity to do that. That's not what's about to happen. That is not what's about to happen, right? So we're doing this first under the assumption Matthew Stafford's healthy. After 2 years of back injuries, that might be short-sighted. But then it wouldn't be any fun. It's my podcast. I want to have fun, right? We're going to have fun. Yeah, so if you're that dude, you can stop listening now. You're not going to enjoy any part of this, right? This is what I do. This is what cornbread and Kool-Aid. I got a big old jug of Kool-Aid and a piping hot batch of cornbread just came out of the oven. And Chris, I know you're listening somewhere. Yep. Turn your volume up, bro, because this is about to happen. So, what we do is we go through every game. And I'm going to basically tell you, I'm going to do my best. No, I'm not. I'm not even going to lie. Nope, I'm doing what I do. We're just going through the games. And at the end, I'm going to have a record that I'm predicting. And people are going to be laughing. And some people are going to post on social media probably. Chris is just going to crack up, maybe crash his car, whatever, right? But that's what we're doing. So, all the warnings have been given. You know what's about to happen. This is where you just go, wait, I need to find something else to listen to. Okay, week 1, September 13th, Chicago Bears comes down. That's an easy win. I'm kidding. It is not an easy win. It is a win. I'm calling that a win. That's a green game. So the color coding goes like this. And here's the truth. The reality is this. And I shouldn't do it this way. Should I do it this way? No, I'm not doing that. We'll get to that later. No, let's do it. I have already done this. I have 7 green games I think they should win. I have 5 red games. Games I think they're almost certainly going to lose. The key, and this is so Lions, and it might be NFL, just how all teams are. It's the other 4 games. It's the other 4 games. So literally, my top end has them at 11-5. But they could easily be 7-9. That's the beauty. That's the beauty. So I have 7 green games, 5 red games, 4 yellow games. The beauty of this is how good God is. The last 4 are the yellows. So I get to go through, and we're going to get through 12 games, and they're going to be 7-5. That's it. I'm warning you. But I'm going to tell you what I think. You can laugh and joke and do whatever. Fine. Home to Chicago week 1, that's a win. They're going to win that game, Mike. Sorry. 2, September 20, you go to Lambeau. They're in that much cornbread in the world. They're probably going to lose that game. They don't play well up there, even though the weather's probably going to be nice. You still got to play against the refs. And I think I already have a whistle, so I hate Aaron Rodgers. I'm not doing another one. You know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. The Packers are going to find some way to screw the Lions over. That's just the way it is. There's no sense in dwelling on it. So you're 1-1. At Arizona, September 27th, we got to make up for the tie loss. This is revenge of the tie loss. The tie loss is one word that I made up to describe the game last year, the opener, when the Lions had a 24-3 lead, should have won that game, and they, in the fourth quarter, 24-3, Arizona somehow comes back and get the tie. But it feels like a loss. So I decided to call it a tie loss. This is revenge of the tie loss. They're 2-1. Home to the Saints. Saints are one of the better teams in the NFC. Actually, I think they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl out of NFC, so you're 2-2. Hopefully that won't be ugly. At Jacksonville, road game. I still think Jacksonville's a good defense. October 18th, Sunday. This is after the bye week. So this is technically week 5. Nope. Might be week 6. Let's see. If they're 2-2, that's week 5. This is week 6 at Jacksonville. I have this as a red game. I have this as a loss. And that's not cornbread, because cornbread me wants to say they might be able to beat Jacksonville. Nope. That's a loss. You're 2-3 after 5 weeks. I'm sorry, 2-3 after 6 weeks, 5 games. At Atlanta. So this is a cornbread game. Certainly a cornbread game. I don't think Atlanta's that good. It is a road game. This is a cornbread game. Yeah, because I'm searching my mind for an objective, logical, sensible reason why they can win. I'm not even going to try. It's a cornbread game. They win. 3-3. Home to the Colts, November 1st. That's a win. I don't know if it's cornbread. I think the Colts might be better than I think. A lot of that's going to depend on how Phillip Rivers is playing, right? I have it as a win. You're 4-3 after 7 games. You go to Minnesota. You take probably another beat down November 8th. That is a loss. So you're sitting at 4-4 after 8 games and 9 weeks. Week 10, Sunday, November 15th, the Washington football team comes to Detroit. A revenge from last year, we win that game. I think we're a better football team. I still hate the Washington football team, even though they, through pressure, finally did the right thing. I'm not doing that. I might have did it last year. They deserve everything that's happening to them, and including the beatdown they're going to get Sunday, November 15th. 5-4 after 9 games, 10 weeks. Sunday, November 22nd at Carolina. So Teddy Bridgewater's their quarterback, right? Cornbread game. They win. It's a green game. They win. They go to 6-4. Then they come home for Thanksgiving. Houston Texans. That's got ass whooping written all over it. Yeah. That's a red game. They're 6-5. And then they go to Chicago for another cornbread game, Mike. I've got them winning in Chicago. On December 6th in Chicago with a win. That's cornbread. So I said there was going to be some cornbread. So I have them 7-5 after 12 games, 13 weeks. That's fine. So now here's the 4 games. The 4 yellow games, right? Home Packers, at Tennessee Titans, home Tampa, home Minnesota. Okay, let's not ignore that 3 of those games are at home. And the other one's in Tennessee. Weather not a factor. Weather not a factor. Okay, what do we do? What do we do? I'm giving them 3 wins. I'm giving them 3 wins. I think you beat Green Bay. I think on the back end, you make up the Minnesota game. I don't buy the Tampa scenario. You beat Tampa. I give them all 3 home games and a road loss at Tennessee. Just a slip up coming down from the Packers, whatever. And Tennessee can run the football. I don't know what Tennessee is, though. And by the same token, I don't know what Green Bay is. I don't know what Tampa will be December 27th. That's 3 out of 4 games at home. I'm giving them 3 home wins and a road loss. Now, Tampa could beat them. They could win in Tennessee. I'm giving them 3 out of 4. 10-6 is what I got them finishing. Deal with it.
Wow.
Let's move on. Get this thing up out of here. All right. We hope you enjoyed listening to our preseason podcast, the first of season 2. Hope you enjoyed the new music. I do want to thank for the musical contributions, and I really want to try and promote these guys. So I'm gonna a little more than last year. I'm gonna spend time. There's good music out there. I want music to be a part of this podcast, and these songs you hear between segments and at the beginning and the end, these kind of represent the vibe that I like personally, the vibe I like for the podcast. So I want to thank the bands and individual artists who contribute this music. It's important for me to the whole, the entire podcast. There's a degree of that I think the music plays a big role. I got to thank my man, my super producer, my guy, Mike Ward. But I want to, for the music, I also want to thank Revel Day, Ed Mills, King Sis, Klinger, and Joby for the contributions for season 2. I'm going to mention them at the end of every podcast. If you guys want to get into them, look them up, right? There's some good stuff there. You hear the vibe, right? If that's your thing, go check them out. See what you can do to help them. Again, thanks for listening. Look for the Roar podcast. We got YouTube links. We have Spotify. We have Twitter, Facebook. You can find us. Hopefully you like it. Even if you didn't like it, hopefully it entertained you. We hope you keep coming back. We hope there's a 2020 season. We're excited about it. Looking forward to it. Again, this doesn't happen without Mike Ward. I open the mic and talk. The rest of this is Mike. The magic is Mike. So I appreciate you, man. I hope you know that. I hope that you guys are excited about a new season and you keep coming back and tell people about it or share the links, whatever you can do. We appreciate it. So hope to see you in a few weeks with a week 1 pod. And as always, take care.